Game over. It is game over.
Game over, cancer. I'm Val Solomon, Director of Program Impact at Cannonball Kids Cancer Foundation.
And I'm Dana Nichols, Executive Director of CKC.
Game Over Cancer, a podcast dedicated to exploring conversations about pediatric cancer research, solutions, and inspiring family stories.
We're a nonprofit dedicated to creating innovative treatment options for kids fighting cancer and educating for change.
By creating a space for these conversations, we empower the community to take action and provide tangible hope.
Game over, cancer. Screw you, cancer. Today's episode is all about roller coasters, the roller coaster of pediatric cancer treatment. The tough realities seem to be where parents have to choose things that will save their child's life, but potentially harm them in the long run. So many difficult choices, so many ups and downs.
Yeah, and we're going to talk to Josh and Gallite Kestler about their son Jake and their road, their path along the cancer journey and all the different highs and lows that they experienced. And I think you'll be heartbroken for them. I think you'll be inspired by them. And I think you will, as we are, have renewed sense of hope when you hear their story and how they've worked on their legacy and established Trailblazers for Kids. It's an amazing story, and we're really glad to tell it.
All right. Well, we're here with Josh Kestler, a 23-year veteran of finance and president of InnoCap, the leading hedge fund managed account platform. He and Gallite have been married for 24 years and are the parents to Jake, Lily, and Luke. Josh and Gallite are going to be talking to us today. We're partners through their foundation, Trailblazers for Kids, a nonprofit that funds pediatric cancer research. Josh is also a board member and our SAB liaison. And now through their foundation, Trailblazers for Kids, we have funded cutting-edge research reviewed and monitored by CKC. And we just love talking to them.
We do. Welcome.
Welcome. Thank
Thanks
you for
for
joining
having
us.
me
Thanks
Good
for having us.
morning.
Well, the thing is, we have been so fortunate through the years of working with you to hear you speak about Jake and learn more about him and the additional time your family had together when he was on Dr. Friedman's trial. I know we've heard a lot that brought such beautiful memories for your family. Can you tell us about some of your favorite days with Jake?
Go ahead, Josh. No, you can start.
You want me to start? Sure. Yeah. So Jake always had just the greatest outlook on life, even when he was facing, unbelievable adversity. And so even when he was being treated, he was always laughing, smiling, and looking to just make the most of every day. And so, I mean, there's a long list of favorite days, just overall and during that time. But I would say, we did a lot of family travel during the time he was on the trial, and he had great quality of life. So we did trips to Hawaii and Cape Cod, Los Angeles, other areas, and so just being away from everything, being together as a family, and just enjoying each other was, to me, were the best memories.
For me, when Jake got sick again, and having that extra time, it really was just about having him with me every day. He was really he became my right-hand man, I call him. Right-hand man, I called him. And so just to have him in the car with me, running errands, we would go out to lunch every day. So just having the opportunity to create those simple memories, doing nothing was even just really special, and having the opportunity to do that with him. He wasn't able to go to school most days. So we really were together, and we're just enjoying our time, getting to do just regular everyday things. So that was really special for me to have all of that time with him, to get to do that.
Yeah. And that was sort of at the end of a very long road for you, or toward the end of a very long road for you in pediatric cancer. And I wonder if you could talk a little bit about, I think, Josh, I've heard you say this before. We've sort of talked about this at CKC, that parents really are they have an unofficial PhD in cancer treatment and in cancer research. Can you talk a little bit about what y'all as parents have gone through, finding treatments for Jake, understanding what treatment options were at the time, and making choices that you did? What was that like?
Sure. Jake had two different cancer battles. So he was initially diagnosed with acute lymphoblastic leukemia at the age of 7, um, and with that particular cancer, the treatment is pretty accepted in terms of the standard of care, and it's generally pretty effective as well. So he, at that point, he was put on a chemo regimen, and most kids go into remission within a month. I think it's over 90%. Unfortunately, he wasn't in that 90%, and so he had to have a bone marrow transplant, which he did. Our daughter, who was 5 years old at the time, she's now 17, was a perfect match for him, and she was his donor. And he did great with the transplant and fully recovered. It was obviously a long journey, and he was isolated in the hospital primarily with Gallite for a couple of months. So there's I think an interesting dichotomy between that, where I think we became more expert at like nursing and caring for him, as opposed to the treatment side of it, because it was so accepted in terms of how he would be treated. He 4+ years later, he was diagnosed with glioblastoma, very different diagnosis. It's believed that the radiation he received leading up to his bone marrow transplant is likely, and a very, very rare and accelerated side effect, what caused the GBM. But that is, amongst the most, if not the most aggressive and deadly cancers that are out there, especially in the pediatric space. So there's the standard of care fails 100% of the time pretty much, and the options are very, very limited, and so we had to really adjust. Whereas we could just be more focused purely on caring for him with the leukemia. Here we had to also be focused on how to get him the best treatment, and so we did a ton of independent research to find the best and most promising treatment options that around the country and even the world, and then he had to actually get into those trials. And so we sent information and talked to doctors everywhere, and we were very fortunate that he was accepted into Dr. Friedman's G207 trial that CKC funded in Alabama, and we went there, and that made a huge difference in our minds. In that typically a survivor, surviving glioblastoma, it's basically 1 year you're given for the most part, even for a child. And he lived for almost 2.5 years, having done the trial. That'll never be enough time for us, but as we alluded to earlier, like the extra memories we were able to make, the fact that through this trial he had a reasonable quality of life where he could still go out and do things. He wasn't hospitalized the whole time. It was very meaningful, but it was very eye-opening to really understand that there were so few treatment options for children with these super deadly diseases, and then also that we had to do so much ourselves. Like it was not it wasn't necessarily that the doctors treating Jake would just tell us, here's the list of what you should look at other institutions. That's not necessarily how it works. And so we really had to put a lot of work in to get access for him to these treatments.
Thank you for sharing that. I feel like that's one thing that we hear a whole lot is, people are shocked to find out, number one, that there are cancers out there where there's not a treatment option available, but then to find one is all on the parents. I think people often are shocked by that.
Because of Jake's previous cancer diagnosis, we were also really looking for something that was not a traditional chemotherapy type of treatment for him. So that added another layer of complexity to our search, and trying to find something really innovative and that would allow him to keep some quality of life and not have him in the hospital with counts that were dropping too low, or horrible side effects from the chemo. So, again, finding the trial that you guys had funded, and being able to just visit Alabama once a month, essentially, after that initial time there, was really like a huge gift to our family, and to Jake.
I love to hear that. One of my questions, having not worked or been part of the cancer space before I was here, was I didn't know glioblastoma, existed or what that is. And so I think a lot of times when you're on the outside of pediatric cancer or cancer in general, you're thinking of cancer and then you're not thinking of these a lot of types. But I wondered, secondary cancer is a possibility, but for your family, were you aware of glioblastoma or different things after Jake's battle with ALL?
So I think we were definitely, aware that he could develop secondary cancers. I think our biggest focus was always that the leukemia could return. So that's always what we were really watching for. And then I think we had a little bit of naivete in the fact that we thought anything that might happen as a secondary cancer would be something that came many, many, many years down the line, not so soon and sudden. And I think, unfortunately, in Jake's case, it was a very, very rare, side effect that he had. I mean, even seeing the looks on the faces of the doctors that had treated him, they were pretty shocked about it. So it was quite rare. But I don't think I certainly didn't spend a whole lot of time thinking about things like brain cancer.
I do have a memory of when Jake was going, when we were meeting with the radiation oncologist before his bone marrow transplant. Leading up to that, you have to have total body radiation to kill, all of the cells in your body before you get your bone marrow transplant. And I do remember the doctor saying, one of the side effects, it's extremely rare, is, you can develop secondary cancers. And she listed off a bunch of cancers, one of them being brain cancer. But again, in the moment when that is your only option, and this is, they're saying this will save your child's life, which it did for 4 years, we really couldn't spend much time thinking about that in that moment. All of the chemotherapies, all of the things that we had done had already come with a very long list of possible side effects and long-term health effects. So we sort of just had to move forward, with it.
Yeah. I mean, we talk about that a lot, as the impossible choice that parents are unfortunately put in there. And I mean, what else would you do, right? You save your child's life. And so we are very happy to work with you and to work with Trailblazers to help come up with treatments that are better for kids. Tell us a little bit about where the idea for Trailblazers for kids came from, because at some point you move into this activation phase where you think we've got to do something different for these kids like Jake. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah. So I think, what we noticed, again, as I alluded to before, our eyes were just really, really opened when we learned about how few, especially innovative treatment options there were for pediatric patients. And that in many cases, if Jake had been a 70 or 80-year-old person, his treatment options would have been much greater. And that didn't make a whole lot of sense to us. And so, we had been, involved in raising money more broadly for cancer research. And we realized that a lot, almost everything that is done is for adults, and that children need different treatments, and that there's so little funding, only 4% of federal funding that goes to pediatric cancer research. There's been almost no distinct, pediatric new drugs that have been created in, I don't know 30, 40 years, very few. And that to us just made no sense. And so when we started to understand more that there was this need and this gap, and that funding for pediatric trials is largely driven by private foundations and, whatnot, that, like we said, we've got to do this. And this is a way, that we can really honor Jake. And the idea for it, we really started when he was still alive. So the early stages of it, he was aware of it. We were building towards it, and it's definitely a way. It's an honor to be able to do it and to keep his memory alive in such a positive way.
And what were some of those early days like? What were your events in the beginning? And you said he was still alive. So was he involved in a lot of it, or could he be involved?
We hadn't held our official first Trailblazers for Kids event, but we were holding other community-based events. Like some indoor cycling events. We had people running different fundraisers in town, selling lemonade or selling cookies, really community-based kind of homegrown fundraising activities, which was really nice. And Jake was aware of that. And our little league in town was also very supportive and helpful, and would actually had Team Jake on the back of some of their shirts, and were raising money for cancer research for every home run hit. Right, Josh?
That's correct. Yeah.
At the time, they would donate money. So the whole league was involved, and it was really special.
Yeah, and when we kicked off Trailblazers, it was also really right going into COVID, so we were definitely limited in the early days of what we could do. So it was definitely very community and grassroots type fundraising, softball tournaments, and people doing sort of kids that were doing individual fundraisers for us and things of that nature. So it's only over the past couple of years that we've been starting to be able to branch out and grow it into a bigger community of people that we're going to get interested in funding us.
That's great. So as Trailblazers grew, you made a choice to partner with CKC, and I wondered if you want to talk a little bit about why that works for what you're doing, or what that made sense for.
Sure. So I guess there's a few elements. One, the most important one is everyone that is involved in the pediatric cancer space. I think we're all working towards the same goal, which is to improve treatment options and ultimately defeat these different terrible cancers and have kids live longer and ultimately be cured. And so, unlike in the business world I'm in, where we compete against others, there's no there shouldn't be any competition. There really should be cooperation. And so in that vein, it just makes a lot of sense to team up and find a way to have a bigger impact. And so, us being, a sort of upstart, more grassroots organization, and CKC being more mature, there's definitely infrastructure, a lot of learning that we can do from what CKC has achieved, and then an infrastructure that's in place, including a scientific advisory board and, actual outreach to different hospitals and researchers that need funding for treatment. So rather than us recreating all of that and spending resources, money on that we might not even have yet, it makes sense to team up, and it's been a wonderful partnership that we look forward to continuing for a long time.
I know when we talk about it, like internally, or even when we're doing outreach to hospitals and institutions, and we're doing those getting to know you meetings where we talk about what we do at CKC, we mention partnerships like the one that we have with Trailblazers. And I think it goes, number one, I think it's not too common that it's maybe talked about or happens, or I don't know. I think it's a point of pride for us when we talk about the partnerships that we have. But, I think people who do this for a long time understand that anytime you can remove redundancies, like the idea that we have one scientific advisory board and that y'all don't have to have your own scientific advisory board. But what does that do? Like the ripple effect of that means that doctors don't have to sit on the advisory board and review like another round of grants. We can kind of pull all of our resources together, have our SAB, Josh can help us as a liaison, right? Like there's so many things that when you take ego out of it and you're just saying, what's the goal we're trying to accomplish? That it feels really good. And I think it's been something that, we can kind of all brag on. I feel like we all do it, but like when we talk about how is it that we solve this really hard problem and make room for everybody and what they're able to do. And this is a great example, I think, of two foundations coming together. And I'm really proud that it's not like CKC has enveloped your organization, that you all have the identity, that Jake's story and inspiration is still at the center of that. It's just a really great relationships, I think, that we've all worked toward.
It is, yeah. I think it's the best of all worlds, certainly for us. And hopefully for you as well. And it is, and it's great. Yeah. And we, obviously appreciate it. I don't think we could have gotten to where we are today without, all the support we've gotten from the CKC team.
Well, I think that's where we can really all actually have cooperation or have partnership, is not just, hey, if you want to come alongside and run your money through here, right? Because it's so much more than that. You sit on the board, you sit with our research committee and lead that for our board members, and you have an expertise in that far, unfortunately, but far surpassing what Val or I could ever understand. So having that guidance is so important to what we're doing. And then we can know that our fundraising knowledge, our, nonprofit administrative knowledge can go that much further or have that much more impact. And we talk about all the different ways that that's true partnership in that sense, not just come here and do this our way. That's important to us. And that every family gets to, acknowledge and lead with their legacy that they're building for their loved ones.
I have to tell you the story. So, when y'all were at the gala, at our gold gala very recently, we were so grateful to see you. And you all were sitting with Dr. Metz, who y'all have funded. And one of the foundation folks, Julie, she's just so wonderful. She said, I'm going to have we're going to bring Dr. Metz. And I was like, okay, we're going to bring the Kestlers. We can have them all sit at the same table today. And then she made some sort of comment about not wanting to steal you guys from us. And I was like, you all can go and work with the Kestlers separately from us. That's okay. Cure cancer, put me out of a job, put Dana out of a job. We are cool.
There's always another nonprofit.
Yeah, there's
not that many good ones that we want to move to.
Right,
but if the mission got solved,
right,
that'd be amazing.
But I feel like we all come to the table. The reason why the collaboration works is because that's the understanding we all have. Whatever works to cure cancer, we literally don't care if we're the people to do it. And that's ingrained. That was kind of the story that I heard and what has been through the culture of CKC since I first started. So I just wanted to put that top of mind for all of us.
Well, I think that's a great segue into what is it like when you get to meet a researcher like Dr. Metz that you're funding and now know, this has come full circle from being a family part of a trial to know you're creating those options for other kids.
Yeah, it's really exciting. I will say, I just on a personal level, I never wanted to focus on things like science and things like that. Those were not my areas of expertise in school. So I went to law school, not medical school, for a very, very, there's a reason for that. But when your child is in the situation that Jake was in, I had to pour myself into, learning as much as I could. And I definitely developed a skill to understand things more than, unfortunately, more than most people. And so it's really it's an honor to be able to put that to bigger use, because I spent a lot of time on it, and it makes me feel like, again, I'm honoring Jake every day and remembering him. So that in and of itself is really special. But then, when we can find a way to fund research and give other children, options, and, these brilliant researchers like Dr. Metz, we can give them a chance to advance, their ideas and help these. It's the most rewarding feeling you can possibly have to meet them and talk about what they're doing, and then even hear their vision for the future and other things they might be thinking about. It's something that I know Gallite are very passionate about, and so it was again, a tremendous honor and really exciting to get to do that.
And speaking of funding researchers, you all went back and funded Greg Friedman, who Jake received treatment from. So tell us what that was like when you were, y'all are close.
Yeah, I'll take the first stab, and Gal, you can join in. So, when I'll never forget, we were taking Jake to different hospitals to see if we can get him into different trials. And we had actually been down in Florida, ironically enough, and we went to the University of Florida, and there was something that he didn't qualify for. So we did sort of what became one of our mottos, which was Carpe Diem. And we just went to Disney World after that, after this real low, we went, we're like, we're just going to go to Disney World and have fun with the kids. So we did that. And while we were there, we were making different phone calls and emails to different other researchers. And Dr. Friedman called me while we were actually in Disney and said, I think Jake is eligible for this trial. And we talked through everything, and I could just tell from speaking to him that this was going to work out and that he was the perfect person to treat him. He's such an unbelievably caring, and thoughtful doctor, brilliant doctor as well, but just so, so caring and personal in his approach. And so, we had the most wonderful experience, I would say, through something that's so terrible, but it was a wonderful experience going. We were treated just top of the line when we were at UAB and by Dr. Friedman and his entire staff. So to come full circle and be able to fund his research was, again, it was just so special to us because we saw the benefit that it could have. I can also say that, we now know that the research that he's doing has been brought to the original hospital. So Memorial Sloan Kettering, where Jake was originally treated, they also saw how effective, the treatment was. And so that it's now offered there. And so knowing that we played a small part, both Jake did in being sort of a pioneer of that treatment, and then we did in terms of, being part of the CKC funding as well. And the fact that kids in our area can now get access to that, it's amazing.
It's so amazing. We're honored that we, get to be part of this with y'all, and that you continue this is just so incredible. Like, it is so beautiful.
And I'll also say, just as, I primarily was the one that was taking Jake to Alabama and spent a lot of time there, especially in that first month. Just the Dr. Friedman's, his whole personality, his compassion, his willingness to collaborate with our doctors in New York so that Jake could be home and could, if anything came up, he worked with our doctors in New York so that, they were all on the same page. I think, again, when you talk about collaboration and how we're all in this together, like, he completely embodies that and really put that at the fore of Jake's treatment and thought about that and thought about the best way to kind of get us all through this, which I think is really special and unique as well. So.
Yeah, it's that quality of life piece, I think, that sets a lot of these researchers apart, is that they understand that it's not just the life-saving or the life-extending aspect of the science, but it is actually the quality of life for these kids who have already been through it for years at this point, by the time they're at the point of getting a clinical trial. And to hear you say that he worked so well with your doctors, and when he could, made it so that Jake would be home. I mean, those are just the things that make sense to us, I think, as, common sense, right? Like, you heal better and you do better when you're at home with your family. And so, but how do we do that for these complex cases? I think to know that the man is brilliant, right? Like, to be able to do that and pull it all together and save lives is amazing.
Well, I thought we could just really quickly, before we go into any other kind of wrap up about Trailblazers, just talk through, well, what have we really done together? Because together, between CKC and Trailblazers, and we've created 235 options for kids. And that's that many children in treatment, in Jake's honor, in the fight, in the idea that we can find better treatment. It's kind of incredible.
It is. It's really really special, and I know we're about to hopefully do our next co-funding very shortly, and we hope to do many more. And there's nothing better than to be able to again honor Jake's memory in this way and help other children, and again ultimately hopefully find a cure to many of these diseases.
Well, is there anything we usually do a little wrap-up question at the end to see if there's anything y'all wanted to discuss that we didn't touch on?
Yeah.
No, obviously, just to thank the two of you. I feel like I've leaned on both of you to help me as, we continue to try to grow our foundation. And I'm so appreciative of all the help you've both given me and shared your expertise and your time. And I'm just really grateful. So thank you both.
Well, we're nonprofit nerds, so
Yeah.
we enjoy it. So keep the questions coming. We love it.
Well, I'm sure I will.
We love seeing your organization grow. We know how many hours you all have had to put into it to drive it there, and pulling a community of volunteers together too, and just the way you're able to motivate folks on behalf of your son is just a very beautiful thing to watch. So we're happy to have a small part in that. And tell folks, the listeners, about where they can find out more about Trailblazers for kids. And y'all have, depending on when this airs, we're not sure, but you have many events. You're starting a gala this year, the Blazers Ball. But where can people find out when your next event's going to be and more information about your nonprofit?
Well, we do have a website. It is www.trailblazers.org, and they can read more about Jake's story. There's lots of pictures on there, and some videos, and it'll have all the information about our upcoming gala and hopefully some other events that we'll be planning in the future.
Perfect. Well, we're really excited to be at the gala.
Yes.
And we are just so excited to continue working with y'all in Jake's honor. And if you, as a listener, are ready to be part of Team CKC, you can join us in advocating for change by sharing, liking, subscribing, tell a friend about us. Thanks for tuning in, because we know it takes a lot to face this topic head on. But we appreciate you joining us and making a commitment to be part of our fight. Until next time, I'm Dana Nichols.
I'm Val Solomon.
Have a great one.
Bye.
Bye.
Join us as we transform fear into courage and turn adversity into opportunities for change.
If you want to be involved in the conversations that create change in the world of pediatric cancer, take a moment, share, like, and subscribe.